Friends, this episode of our podcast is presented as an incisive and timely study of the Iran war from the standpoint of military in India. The US and Israel hold clear technological and air superiority over Iran. The two had the capability of neutralizing Iranian air defenses and striking deep within its territory. Iran has had larger manpower and a substantial inventory of missiles, but Israel precision strikes backed by US logistical and air power outweighed Iran defense systems. Comparative data about manpower, guns, tanks, aircrafts, helicopters, and warships of the two sides is not relevant to this discussion. In the course of the 40 days active war, Iran suffered severe losses. It has recorded 3,400 deaths and 26,500 injured. Further, it had to face around $300 billion in economic damage. About 1,900 Hezbollah fighters were also killed. More than 80% of Iran's air defense systems were rendered out of action. US-Israel coalition did not suffer similar high casualties of their combatants. However, their material losses have been severe. At least 17 US sites in West Asia stand damaged. A number of MQ-9 Reaper drones and several aircrafts were lost. Economic loss has exceeded $270 billion to $1 trillion. Senior military training in Iran military focuses on warfare tactics, especially drones, AI-driven technology, and cyber capabilities, while emphasizing ideological loyalty to the regime. Particular attention is paid to bring home lessons from the Ukraine war that are regularly disseminated across their rank and file. The passage of Iran war so far has led to numerous articles, talks, and discussions about the lessons for India. Suggestions continue to be made about changes needed in Delhi's acquisition policy. A number of experts have labored on a justification to procure different types of drones and ballistic missiles for Indian armed forces. But would merely a newly designed arms wardrobe be the answer to India's security readiness for varied strategic challenges? Emphasis only on new and latest acquisition may not favor the military in battlefield without a desired upgrade in doctrines, leadership, political maturity, and fighting spirit. A relook at the robustness of our higher leadership in the changing state techno mindset and capacity is also need of the hour. A relook at the robustness of our higher leadership in the changing threat techno mindset and capacity is also need of the hour. Do the commanders possess speedy mental alertness to respond to strategic, tactical, and technical robustness expected in multi-dimensional maneuvers? A number of distinct aspects of Iran military deserve to be taken into account. Certain instances from Iran war deserve to be highlighted to emphasize a few aspects that are also attracted in our context. Iran's military and security apparatus are a complex network of ideological, political, and coercive power. These are nurtured to protect the Islamic Republic against all threats, foreign and domestic. Iran's military, particularly the IRGC, projects courage through defiance of Western powers. It is evidenced by its direct missile attacks on US bases in 2020 and active naval operations in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has successfully faced an internal struggle and fragility on accounts of threats in Strait of Hormuz. Effective support was extended in spheres of intelligence and logistics, and full cooperation extended to Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthis. Iran successfully encountered major challenges and overcame problems due to sudden disappearance of its leadership by Israel's lethal decapitation strikes. Technical ingenuity was shown by Iran by its recourse to technical upgrade and use of homegrown technologies like drone swarms and leveraging Chinese Baidu satellite guidance to circumvent GPS jamming. Baidu offers a short message communication service, particularly useful for search and rescue. Tehran, at the start, decided to adopt hybrid warfare. It increased the stockpile of low-cost, domestically produced suicide drones. Its military relied on an out-of-box approach focused on asymmetric warfare, prioritizing high-tech equipment, cyber capabilities, and AI-driven combat over traditional military parity. This doctrine centered on disrupting global energy supplies. It relied on small, agile units and doomsday weapons. Tehran maintained a high state of discipline in its defense forces, employing its strict and ideologically driven hierarchy. Its policy is to heavily focus on regime loyalty. Surprise has been a central doctrine for Iran in 2026 conflict. It was attained by utilizing asymmetrical warfare, sudden strikes of long-range drones, and the tactical closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Regular and complete coordination was maintained between regular military and IRGC, Hezbollah, and Houthis, and that was hugely beneficial for Iran. Fierce determination of Iran military leadership was witnessed by its refusal to collapse in the wake of initial strikes. Iranian force swiftly mobilized over 1 million fighters for potential ground confrontation. Junior leadership stood firm despite the huge blow to Iran military due to death and abandonment in higher ranks. There is now an increased reliance on teenaged recruits. Further, wartime leadership is being steadily groomed. Many believe that Iran's most important tool is neither its missile program and nor its nuclear agenda, but the ability to close the Strait of Hormuz, which targeted Gulf states' security and thereby increased energy prices globally, further putting global pressure on the US. Decentralized mosaic defense was the doctrine advocated by Iran by restructuring its IRGC into 31 autonomous units. The approach allowed regional units to act as small independent threads that hold the structure together. It was aimed at retention of their operational capability in the eventuality of disruption of their central command. It thus guarded against systematic paralysis. Iran demonstrated significant resilience, specifically by sustaining its war efforts. This was despite intense bombing that it suffered. It maintained alert command structure even after the loss of its top leaders. Moreover, it adopted advanced asymmetrical tactics. These steps were unhesitatingly adopted by recourse to drones and missiles in the air campaigns. Decentralized military operations allowed Tehran to withstand intense air strikes. It avoided significant damage through a combination of developing underground missile cities using mobile missile launchers, employing shoot and scoot tactics, and layered air defense systems. Another notable feature was putting up a continued endurance. This was demonstrated by the continuity of its institutional relevance, even though it was subjected to widespread bombing. Iran chose to follow a policy of forward defense by using proxies. It's a doctrine based on the centralized proxy networks and missile capabilities while destroying adversaries' bases. Attrition as a policy helped Tehran to exhaust its opponents by sustained drone and missile attacks. It prolonged the conflict rather than seeking a quick battlefield victory. The intended benefit was sustained economic and psychological damage infliction on the adversaries. Yet another notable feature was recourse to a dispersed war. It was characterized by Iranian retaliatory strikes on US/Israeli interests across West Asia. It used cyber, aerial, and proxy warfare. Iran chose to desist from fighting any pitched battles. Recourse to kill chains was the leadership decision to launch retaliatory strikes. There were persistent, asymmetric, and long range strikes to disturb regional stability. The process extended from the stage of detecting a target to destroying it. Excess of resistance as a notion was gainfully exploited by organizing non state armed groups aligned with Iranian state interests. It took under its umbrella Hezbollah in Lebanon, Houthis in Yemen, apart from Hamas and Islamic Jihad and others. The war showed maintenance of a posture of defiance by Iran. The reliance on strategic patience was abundant. The policy of defiance advocated a will to withstand rather than accept defeat. It was reliance on conventional military pressure and aimed to increase costs for its adversaries via proxies. In the backdrop of all this, training for the senior military leadership in Iran focuses on warfare tactics and specifically drones, AI driven targeting, and cyber capabilities. Emphasis is laid on ideological loyalty to the regime. Senior commanders are taught to handle autonomous and decentralized units so as to ensure operational continuity in situations where central leadership is disrupted. A key element is operational readiness and rapid response. Latest lessons from regional conflicts, and I refer to Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, etc., have been included into the curricula both for command and staff. These emphasize difference in strategic, zone warfare, and asymmetric tactics against superior foes like US. The exercises usually include beach landings, employment of missile units, and electronic warfare. Highlighted aspects are practice of autonomy and response beyond their borders. Installation of strategic choke points is also attempted. War games held are designed on Ukraine war lessons and defensive as well as offensive stances. In the backdrop of these special features of Iran's performance in the war, let us now turn to Indian position. The Indian Defence Forces, and that include Army, Navy and Air Force, reckon as one of the world's largest militaries. They have a robust combat record, including wins in all post-independence war except 1962 Indochina conflict. As a nuclear armed power, India is steadily working to attain self-reliance in domestic manufacturing. The major engagements of Indian military post-Kargil give adequate indication about its operational competence and challenges. Having regard to the operational necessity and justification to institute requisite countermeasures within the Indian Defence Forces in view of the performance noticed in the earlier engagements called for an objective scrutiny. Most of the incidents covered here did not see direct employment of foreign militaries. They may not compare to Iran War 2026 in intensity, duration, or diversity of armament used. However, they were all serious security threats to the national security. Let us see these operations in little detail. 1993 Mumbai bomb blast had resulted in 257 deaths. It revealed massive security lapses. These included failed coastal surveillance, allowing massive RDX smuggling, inadequate intelligence sharing between the state and central agencies, and proactive inaction despite warnings. The attack showed glaring gaps in the maritime security protocol. The terrorist attack on the Parliament of India in New Delhi on the 13th December 2001 was carried out by Jaish-e-Mohammed militants of the Islamic terrorist group. The incident resulted in the death of 6 New Delhi police personnel, 2 security service providers, and a gardener. The attackers were able to enter the high security premises in a car with fake Home Ministry and Parliament stickers. The incident revealed slow intelligence response. Then the history of 2002 of Parakram carries a saga of slow mobilization of 5 lakh troops. The effort took nearly 3 weeks for India to complete. Thus, the strategic surprise was lost. The delay allowed Pakistan to move its 3 lakh military. Former Naval Chief Admiral Sushil Kumar lamented that India lacked clear objectives. The massive mine-laying operation resulted in a large number of mine-related fatalities. It was said to be a war that never truly began. 2008 Mumbai attack had witnessed 175 people killed, including 9 of the attackers. The terrorists were members of the Lashkar-e-Taiba. Handwork controlled from Pakistan property. Damage exceeded over $1 billion. Political leaders were said to be inept. There were numerous maritime surveillance gaps. Lack of unified command was also recorded. Moving on to January 2016 terror strike on Pathankot Air Force Station saw failure of Indian authorities to follow up action after sharing dossiers with Islamabad. Further, the attack was said to be an outcome of a major intelligence failure. September 2016 Uri attack again saw Jaish-e-Mohammed armed militants targeting the brigade headquarters near Uri with 19 soldiers killed. The operation exhibited lack of intelligence, poor surveillance, gaps in effective perimeter defense, and a response that brought out lack of coordination. The 2019 Pulwama attack was the handiwork of Jaish-e-Mohammed. The operation saw 40 CRPF soldiers. They were traveling in a bus. It was rammed by a car laden with the explosives. The perpetrators had been reportedly arrested 6 times between September 2016 and March 2018, but released each time without any charges. The government had received 11 intelligence inputs before the attack. Yet, the Home Ministry had not responded to an airlift requisition for the CRPF personnel. Convoy protocols were found to be ineffective. Weaponization of social media to influence political leadership came to be counted as ineffective. The 2019 Balakot airstrike was a bombing raid conducted by India on 26 February in Balakot prior to the general elections of April 2019. One Indian helicopter was accidentally downed by the Indian anti-aircraft fire, killing 6 airmen on board and 1 civilian on ground. Need for credible proof of military actions to demonstrate victory was fully realized. Thereafter, 15th June 2020 Galwan Valley clash was a violent non-firearm confrontation between Indian and Chinese troops in Ladakh. The clash saw 20 Indian soldiers killed. The Chinese casualties are not known. The two parties were engaged in aggressive melee, face-offs, and skirmishes. Shots were fired, and both sides blamed each other for the start of the firing. Post-confidence building measures were found to be ineffective. I then turned to lessons from the Corps Commander level talks that were held between 2021 and 24. These were to upgrade the military commanders to better engage in a strategic dialogue. Military commanders would then emerge more confident to address the strategic territorial issues. The Pahalgam massacre of tourists in Kashmir on 22nd April 2025 registered death of 26 civilians, mostly Hindus, by Lashkar-e-Taiba. The attack came as a total surprise. It emphasized the need for better real-time intelligence sharing and a strong proactive counter-terrorism grid in the J&K. Need for corrective action and suitable response training within military domain having regard to surprise enemy action. An incident, a reaction like remarks जो उचित समझें करें during the 2020 India-China Ladakh standoff must never be allowed to happen. Lack of clarity is to be refrained both from the standpoint of the querist as well as the responder. Standard operating procedures would need to be suitably recast and rehearsed. Lack of clarity about loss of own aircrafts during Op Sindoor is the next point. Military as well as civilian authorities at various echelons should be suitably briefed to avoid furnishing contested figures like in the contingency of aircraft losses. This is necessary to retain the trust and confidence of the home population. Repeated assertions by President Donald Trump about claiming credit for brokering a ceasefire during Op Sindoor was a diplomatic disaster that could have been suitably addressed. IRIS Dana, a Maj-class frigate of Iran, was sunk by US Navy submarine Charlotte when it fired 2 torpedoes on 4th March 2026. The strike resulted in 136 personnel killed, whereas 32 survived. The vessel had earlier participated in Milan 2026 maritime exercise in India from February 16 to 25. It was returning when it was attacked in international waters near Sri Lanka. It was reportedly unarmed. The incident was viewed as bringing the regional conflict into India's backyard, making it a sensitive diplomatic issue. The key lessons include the urgent need for enhanced underwater domain awareness and the increased risk of maritime security incidents. Training of all ranks and particularly of senior officers in military would certainly benefit from a relook and redesign. It should be based on new realities and challenges. Accordingly, reoriented and revamped regular and imaginative training would help to keep the military as well as civilian leadership alert, updated, and unorthodox. Training exercises, war games, and simulated tests should be introduced to promote speedy deployments, selection, and engagement of major targets by matching responses. Innovations are now inescapable in making wargaming more realistic, challenging, and complex. They should demand speedy decisions, multiple options, and depict an out of box approach. Through monitoring and evaluation should be the norm, and corrective measures undertaken. Recalibrate the defense acquisition plans. The often reported quote, all great nations spend peacetime preparing for the day war breaks out, must never be forgotten. Thank you.